Hello, working with my hair here. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get confused on which way I need to go. All right. Welcome to another edition of Heirloom Popcorn Seed Company. We're talking about popcorn. We're talking about agriculture history. We're talking about new books. We're talking about all different types of issues. My last stream, I introduced my new book called The Farmer and the Seedsman, and I think you'll enjoy it. It is about my time before biotech was even involved, before we had cell phones, before we had a lot of the nice novelties that we have today, and how we worked to make it a very profitable, a very advanced agriculture without all the technology that we had before. You say, well, why are you talking about that? People don't want to hear about the past. They want to experience the future. Well, you got to know a little bit of the past to create a future, because you can't create a future without some elements of reference to the past. And that's the reason why I've done some of these books that I've done. The Farmer and the Seedsman talks about my duration in the seed industry, and it's more of a short story. It's not that long. Again, you can get it on Amazon Kindle for around, I think, $5. You may quote look that up. You can also order it from me directly. Go to my website, everyonePopcornSeedCompany.com, and you can get a copy of the book with a seed purchase, and or with purchase the book and I'll send you some seeds, vice versa. How's that sound? Let's talk a little bit about history of ag. In the 80s, when I got out of agriculture, it was a pretty bad, and I may have talked about this before, it was a pretty bad time. We had high land prices and low commodity prices, which created a lot of cash flow issues that farmers couldn't pay back loans. And we're not quite there today, even though we have high land prices. Our commodity prices are dropping low. It's the interest rates, and also in the 80s it was interest rates too, because they had very high interest rates on borrowed money. It's almost impossible to pay it back. And we're getting, a little bit to that point. They've made some money in the last 3 years, but in corn, there's not been a lot. There's not going to be a lot of money made. In soybeans, there's going to be so much money, but not a lot of money at this point. So we need to look at, resolving the problems of finding better ways to work with farmers on interest rates, equipment deals, maybe lease and not buy. Uh, Look at alternatives in seed. That's the reason why in The Farmer and the Seedsman, I'm very highly critical of, not having the public domain to turn to like we once did in agriculture. And, biotechnology replaced all that. And I still think there's a need for that third party out here. And I still think there's a need for uh, that type of plant breeding and that type of work to be done through the universities pretty intensely, to give farmers choice and give an unbiased uh, educational opinions or research based facts for them to plan their farms with and on. So, um, look at that book, look at a little history, and see how it formulated to make agriculture a little better as we moved from the 60s into the 70s, 80s. I started working in the 80s and 90s. Then biotech came in the 90s. And it was quite a transition. Necessarily there at the beginning, biotech varieties did not out yield conventional varieties. And I mean conventional non biotech varieties. So it was interesting to see if biotech was going to catch on, because farmers cared about yield and not necessarily the convenience. But as time went by, the yields got better, and the convenience of spraying the chemicals that had biotech, the plants that had biotech resistance or resilience, made it too easy. So it was hard for the farmers to go back. Plus, it became a little bit cheaper on chemical spraying at that time to do that, because a lot of you'd have to make 2 or 3 passes with, you do a pre-plant or a burn down or a post treatment. So you're in the field 3 or 4 times just spraying. So we cut that down to maybe a couple of times at the most, which would be 3, 4, as many as 5 times in a field, trying to get weed control. So in some respects, maybe it did do a little bit better, but I think we done a pretty good job in our non-biotech era. I also, again, want to talk about, always talk about my books. It's my channel, so I'm going to talk a little bit about them. Popcorn, A Journey, a fascinating book that I wrote about the heirloom popcorn seed varieties all over the world. I've listed over 100 of them, and I think you'll enjoy reading about it. I also put some fun facts in this book. I've also put health issues in this book about popcorn, and I've also done some fun things for kids in this book. So check out that book, and you can get that on Kindle also, or you can order it from me again at heirloompopcornseedcompany.com, and or write me at heirloompopcornseedcompany@gmail.com. So our next issue is why all the grocery prices high out here. Why are all the you go to the supermarket and you can spend $100 and have 5 items, it seems like. And that's due to, inflation that we've been having. We've been having high inflation, or at least high for what we've seen in the last few years. And that keeps driving prices up. Labor's another issue. When you're paying, you were paying $10 to $12, now you're paying $15 to $20 an hour. That's going to drive up the prices of many products out here in America. I'm an agricultural, I teach agriculture economics, agribusiness economics, and I believe that that's probably one of the biggest issues that we're struggling with. And again, fuel costs have been on the rise. Trucking costs are on the rise. Manufacturing costs are on the rise. And it costs a lot more to put that product out. And that's the reason why prices are so high in grocery stores. The interest you borrow. I've talked about this before, for an operating loan on $1 million operation that, a few years back was 4 or 5%, maybe 6 at the most. Now it's 8, 9, 10% for an operating loan, unless you can get some sort of government assistance with that. And you're looking at, tougher to pay back the loans, and we're having to cut back on farms on unnecessary issues and hold on to equipment a little longer than we anticipated. So another issue too on some of this, our prices are low. Maybe it will open up some foreign markets to help get rid of some of the surplus. I know our trade policies haven't been as good as we have had in the past. We can't seem to pass a farm bill in relation to the past 2 or 3 or whatever. It seems like we struggle to pass a farm bill, and we talk more about nutrition than we do about producing. If you can't produce, there's no such thing as nutrition, because you got to have the food on the table to be able to relate to nutrition, and that's what has to have the priority. And then we understand that people have needs and need food and other products, but we have to take care of those 2 million people that are out here on the farming operations, making sure that they are viable. Another issue that I'd like to bring up, and that is young farmers trying to get into, or young people trying to get into agriculture. You're going to have to start small, maybe a couple of acres, maybe on some sort of specialty crop. For a young person to get in agriculture today, It's almost virtually impossible because, land at $10, $12, $15,000 an acre, you can't afford that. 100 acres of that, you've tied up all your money, plus taxes, and then you haven't even started farming. You don't have any equipment, you don't have any seed, fertilizer it takes to do that. So, if the federal government wants to be involved in something, it needs to be involved in creating new farmers. I think the more the agrarian society, the better you are, because the more you have as agrarian society, which is creating small business, the better we are, the better off we are. And we need to spend some time and focus on that issue through Congress, through the ag committees, through state ag committees, and see what we can do to get more young people who are interested in farming that want to farm, that have worked on farms for 4 or 5, 10 years, just don't have the money, equity, or capital. They're not, sons of generational farmers. They are people, and even though you have generational farmers, and the son still may need money to get to go and start to do his own operation. There may not be enough land or money there to the grandpa and dad still have to farm it and are not going to be able to turn it over for many years, and that younger person wants to go out here and strike on their own to try and move that up and move forward in farming. I believe that's an issue that we really seriously need to tackle and look at as a problem in our agrarian society and in agriculture in general. Also, we're talking about trade policies. We're talking about, you know, um, being able to get our crops. I've told you many times that agriculture is the largest export of any industry we have. It creates more positive good on reducing trade deficits because food can go everywhere. But we've got to have a price that people want to buy at, and we've got to have an element of looking at tariffs uh, don't help food and the exchange. Embargoes do not help. We saw that when we embargoed the Soviet Union, when we embargoed other countries that using food in our grain markets to as weapons against it. It works, but it doesn't help the farmers because it creates a stalemate and increase, uh, or I should say, a less demand for our products, which increases stockpiles uh, here at home. And you can only go so much in so many places with all that grain here at home. Though we do a good job of using it and utilizing grain, whether it be ethanol, whether it be food products, feed, whatever else we need to use it for. Um, but two, making and keeping farmers profitable has got to be high priority. And a lot of people don't realize that since we're such a well-fed nation, it is a great defense mechanism that we don't necessarily realize. We have the best food in the world, and that's the reason why we have such a very good defense. Not discounting soldiers, we have great soldiers and great uh, equipment for them to work with, but food is the priority in relation to keeping our army in the field and being well fed. So I don't want to get into that too hot and heavy, but what I would like to do too is explain. Go on Kindle and type in Gary Cross agriculture or popcorn books and see if you can get some of those on Kindle. I'm going to continue these short videos and short uh, uh, agricultural information tidbits for you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. And happy popping!